Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. What's new and exciting?
I don't know. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing since when? Today?
Since 5 minutes ago, what's happened? Tell me everything.
5 minutes ago, I made a coffee. It's too hot to drink, um, but I also have a pop, so I'm okay. Or a soda, depending on where you're from.
What flavor?
It is a cherry Coke Zero.
Oh, that's a good pick.
Hmm.
Cherry Coke Zero.
Yeah.
So, all right, I have a lot of questions for you.
Uh, okay.
First of all, how are things going with lo-fi?
As of when? I
Or
think.
would you like to describe lo-fi to anyone listening who's not familiar with it?
Sure. So I've been working in VR for a while, since like, whatever, 2013, 2014. I already have a launch title for the Oculus Rift when that came out called Technolust. Lo-fi, I started like 3 years ago, maybe a little more now, and ran a Kickstarter for it. It's like, so the idea is I want to kind of make for VR what I want from VR, which isn't really what is in VR currently. Like I don't want it to be gamey. I always think when I start designing something for VR, like what would I do if I had a holodeck, right? Like, and it's not play Beat Saber or shoot Nazis. As fun as that is, um, it's kind of like what they did on Star Trek. Like Picard would kind of live in his like noir
Yeah.
detective fiction and just chill. He just put his feet up on the desk sometimes and like decide if he wants to take a case or not. There's no stress. Like there shouldn't be stress. It should be, you should get the things out of it that VR is really good at giving you, which is like kind of mood and like scale and like atmosphere, like things that you can't get from just like a flat screen. Well, you can get it from a flat screen, but like, I mean, VR is really good at kind of conveying it, especially things like scale, right? Like you're not going to
Definitely.
like in a game, like a flat game, you don't like look up at a building and just kind of like stand there for a minute, just being like, holy crap, that's, big because
Right.
it's
Well,
not.
you don't have depth perception if you're not in VR, which is
Right.
such a cool element to add to a game or an experience, right? Having
For
being able
sure.
to see like distance in that way is way
Mhm.
way cooler, way more impactful.
Oh, so I'm sort of like beating around the bush. It's like a cyberpunk kind of like, not really cyberpunk. I think that term's kind of like been sullied by recent cyberpunk stuff. It's not all like pink and purple, and it's more like I've been going for neo noir,
Okay.
which is like kind of fits the mood better. Like kind of Blade Runner esque, more retro futuristic, like 80s kind of. I've been really inspired by, I'm old, so it's like 80s sci-fi horror and like, yeah, things like Blade Runner, RoboCop. Like these are the things I would call cyberpunk. Like RoboCop is like the most cyberpunk movie I can think of. It's yeah, things like there's this movie called Outland with Sean Connery, where he's like he's like the sheriff on a police station on Io, and it's sort of like a sci-fi western. Um, but like things like that, I'm really inspired by. Less kind of, yeah, what people would equate with cyberpunk nowadays.
That's interesting. That's true. It is very. There's like a modern like kind of thing that you think about with cyberpunk, but it used to be like more neo noir, like you're describing.
Yeah, exactly. More kind of like, yeah, less clean and sci-fi, more like kit bashed and like dirty. It's
Hmm.
kind of like the vibe.
I wonder if it's changed over time as like the present day has changed over time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's changed a lot just based on like how production of things has changed. Like people go straight from kind of concept art to a finished product now, and like we used to raid the junkyard and like build stuff out of scraps, and like kind of build from yeah what we had, and it was kind of like beautiful things come from that, as opposed to there's something sterile about going from concept art to finished product. I think it's just like something gets lost, and I think that happens with everything, right? With film, with games, when you have all the money in the world, it's basically like one guy's in control, and you end up with this clean finished product. Like the Star Trek, sorry everyone, Star Wars prequels are like a really good example of that, right? Like you look at the original Star Wars movies, and they're all kind of like like lightsabers were made from like old flash bulb things and plumbing supplies, and the ships were like like egg cartons and crap glued to the walls. But then the prequels, it was like it goes from these concept designs to the finished product that's just completely CG, and it's so like sterile and kind of lifeless. It doesn't feel as lived in and as real, and I think that's really important for some things like VR. um, that feels kind of like a believable world.
That's so interesting. And now I think about, I wonder, like, have you ever played any games or thought about making a game that uses some form of like real elements? Like I've played one. It's kind of like an obscure indie game. It's called The Dream Machine, and they did like a claymation game, but they did it so beautifully. Like the actual characters and scenes, they sculpted it out of actual clay.
Mhm.
They painted it so like it looks really interesting, and then they actually like moved it around with their hands rather than like T-posing and rigging like a
Right,
3D
right.
character.
Yeah, I love stuff like that.
Really cool.
Like one of my most like viral tweets ever was kind of saying that, like, that I wish people would kind of explore more visual genres for games. And my example was like like 1970s, like early 70s, or I guess it's like mid 70s, cartoon stuff, like the fantasy art where there's like everything's kind of like mushrooms, and like everything's kind of long and like stretched out. Like I love, like, you don't see that anymore. It's like a dead art genre, but it's like, why aren't there any games that look like this? Um,
Are you
or
talking
like,
like heavy metal?
yeah, like
Yeah,
heavy metal, or like kind of more fantasy version of that. Like same sort of art style though. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. There was a one old game that was under. I mean, there's probably a few of them. What's the
Yeah,
one
there's a
that?
couple that were like, yeah, like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace and
Okay.
stuff like that. But those weren't really games. Well, I guess they are games, but you know what I mean. They're like full
But
motion video, kind of like, yeah, they're just a CD where you're skipping chapters basically.
right.
Um, but yeah, I wish more genres would be explored.
Yeah, I don't. You don't see that in the present day, at least, at
Hmm.
all. Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
So there's a funny example of something cool like that. Diablo 4, and I think it was some of the earlier Diablo games. So all of the skeletons in the game are like at a lower frame rate than everything else, to kind of look like the old, like Jason and the Argonauts kind of
Yeah,
thing. And it's so amazing. Like, to somebody who knows what they're referencing, it's like every time I see a skeleton and he's just kind of like janky coming up out of the ground, I'm like, oh, that's so cool that they even let them do that. Like that. There was like an art director that was like, yeah, let's go with that, because it's like it's awesome.
that is a cool idea. I like that a lot.
Hmm.
I would never have thought to do that, but like, I guess you'd have to be pretty familiar with those movies to think about a
Yeah.
skeleton and think
Well,
about.
it's just it makes sense in your head, right? It's like, anytime you see like an animated skeleton, it's like stop motion, right? Or like, well, it used to be anyway. And that's the same kind of thing. Like, I don't know, like you lose something with like super high frame rates on certain things and stuff, and like I even put film grain on by default in lo-fi, uh, and it's like it's so interesting to be in film grain, like be it's like you're stepping into like the medium. It's not something you get to experience. But like it might be the same sort of thing where only people who kind of grew up with film grain and like the kind of texture of what film used to be would get get it, because I do get a lot of complaints like why is film grain on by default, like just turn it off or whatever. Like there's a setting to turn it off and it's fine, but
Right. That's a good question. And I wonder, will like younger people playing games or even watching movies and stuff, will they appreciate those kinds of elements that like people are making that kind of call back to these older times? Or if they like, I feel like there's been some, I feel like they'd appreciate it actually. Like they'd be like, oh, that's cool. That's how it used to be.
I think cool people appreciate it. But it's like I don't know. I'm sure you have a lot of like the internet's a mixed bag for sure. You get like yeah, some people get very upset over very minimal things. I,
Hmm.
I tweeted the other day. Somebody tweeted at me because I'm using AI like generative stuff for some of the things in my game, right? Like I've got all these
Oh, the Steam thing.
yeah mug shots and stuff. So somebody tweeted at me like that Steam thing that Valve isn't allowing content if you can't prove that whatever. And I was like, well, that's fine. They'll see me in court if they tried to, because you can't do that. You can't prevent like the example of me is like this is my livelihood. You can't just say like, no, we're not going to allow you on Steam because you used a tool that we don't like. Like, no, that's definitely like class action territory. Anyway, so that's all I wrote was like they'd see me in court, and the internet went ballistic, man. I got nothing but hate from like Valve fanboys for like 3 days. I'm sure if I check right now, it's still going. Like everyone's like,
No.
"Look at this loser AI boy," whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to say, but because it's like I can't read it because it's not worth reading. But it's like you get that same sort of thing across the board. You're gonna have people that are just like adamant about some opinion. You can't win. But it's like so. I just try to ignore it. I just try to make stuff that I think is dope, and then
Yeah,
like that's all you can do.
that's true. Honestly, I mean, when people are when people are interacting with your work because they don't like it, like that just means people are finding your stuff. Even the people who aren't going out looking for it are still finding it. So it's
Right?
like
Yeah, yeah.
it just means
Which
that
is
more
fine, right?
people are
It's the
seeing it.
old like any press is good press thing, right? So yeah,
Exactly. That's so funny though, because like, and it's an interesting case, your game especially. I guess it's probably many games like this because 99% of the game is all made traditional ways, but there's just like one small element that you used AI for. And
yeah,
it's cool. It just adds to the game and it's kind of a cool, like,
yeah,
um, it's cool to see what the AI made and how nicely it fits into the game. So
yeah.
I'm really curious to see how they're going to enforce this rule and how it's going to
I
work.
don't think like I don't know. I don't know what that title was. That like I didn't look into it. The title that they blocked. Like maybe it's all just like make me something that looks like Star Wars, like something copyright ish. That like
Right.
that infringes on copyright anyway. And then they're trying to say like I can't think of any other way that like it would be a problem. Like
Yeah. And
excuse me, is Valve like literally just taking the stance that you're not allowed to use generative art tools or any sort of AI? Like
I'm not sure because Unity just announced a bunch of tools that they're going to be integrating into Unity
yeah,
that use AI. So like is it just art or like if you used AI tools to code it as well,
mm-hmm.
would that be it? Not that I would want to do it yet.
Yeah,
But I haven't tried the new Unity tools, but maybe they're really great. And like, does that
yeah,
mean like you have to like just intentionally not use them so that later when you go in and submit your game, you can tick that I Hereby declare I have not used AI for the game.
It's insane though. That's insane. That like it like I feel like it's such a Twitter problem. It's like one of those things where yeah, people are just getting outraged about something that like for no reason. But it's so weird for like a company to take a hard line stance on something like that, you know, for and it's yeah, it's
It is weird.
it's crazy because Valve's such a weird company too because they're like basically a monopoly for PC games, right? They're technically a game company, but they make something like once every 10 years. Like it's like this weird flat structure where nobody's the boss. Like there's no like, I don't know how they get anything done, and it's like they're just making obscene amounts of money off everybody else's stuff. That's their job, and then to go from that position to like make decisions like this, like blocking people, like you can find weird like lolly crap on Steam, you know, like how is
True.
that okay?
That's
But
true.
like you're gonna rage against the machine, like nobody's you're not allowed to use new tools. That makes no sense. It's crazy. Like
Huh.
that's what I mean about it being a Twitter problem. It's like yeah, it's like some weird social like virtue signal thing. Like there's no, I can't think of a logical reason to prevent it. Like Valve's gonna get in trouble for copyright infringement. That's not how it works. Like
The only thing I could think of is maybe they're getting like just completely blasted with games that are made entirely by AI with like automation, and
right,
they're just like such poor quality games, and they're
right.
just like flowing in so much that seems like okay, we gotta say no AI because they don't know how else to
Yeah,
say
that
like
doesn't make any sense. Like that's not gonna prevent that curation process from having to happen, right? Like somebody's still got to look at every single thing and decide like this is too much AI or whatever, you know, like they're still
maybe
gonna get inundated with crap no matter what.
maybe it just gives them an excuse during that review process to be like nope, 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 nope,
Yeah, I
and
guess so. But like that's what I mean. Like if they tried to block like you tell me that there aren't artists at Ubisoft and like everywhere taking advantage of these tools right now, like for any new product that's coming out, or like, of course they are, or like every writer, like every show, like anyone that's like serious about their profession that can be affected by these tools is using these tools in some way, right? Or like at least is I don't know, maybe not. I like it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me to think that like they would try to block somebody's like this is the problem is you would need to go to court about that because you're if the only way that I can sell my game is through your platform basically and you're preventing me from doing it for arbitrary reasons like that like that's like a labor issue like you can't like there's got to be like laws that prevent that from happening like you can't just say like nope we don't want you to make money because arbitrary reason like it doesn't make any sense.
that's an interesting one. I don't know how that works, and I don't know how one would go about that, but
Yeah,
I'm definitely interested to see how it plays out.
I can talk to my neighbors actually like a labor law guy that does
Oh
work
yeah.
with like text platforms and stuff basically
Okay.
like he was talking to me about it like about like YouTubers like unionizing and like all this like crazy crap like that like so I mean yeah basically it, it can become like a labor dispute like you can't prevent someone from making money if you're like monopolizing the only way they can do it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I heard it. Want to hear some gossip?
Oh, sure.
You know how there's the writer's strike with like all the film stuff?
Yeah,
Supposedly, there's some rumors going around that they just want to replace everyone with like AI. So they're
Yeah.
not even like, they're like, okay, go ahead and go on strike. We don't really care.
Well,
Like they
I
just
mean, it's a weird thing. Like writing, like I wanted to get into writing, like screenplays and stuff a long time ago, but then I realized that what a kind of like thankless job it is. It's kind of like, so you write, say I wrote my my magnum opus, my best thing, and it's like a film. Then I sell it for like who knows what. Like say I worked on it for a year and it sells for like 20 grand or something. Then it's gone and it just gets ruined. Like they might get somebody else to rewrite it. They might like just hire terrible actors. They might just like, it's such like a heart-wrenching thing to, it's like imagine it, any other art form, if you just gave somebody your art and then they just like worked on it after you. It's like, what? That
so
sucks, man. That's such a like, I don't want to do that. um, like it's okay if you're like writer, director, producer or something, which a lot of like big directors are, or like if you find a good director that's you trust. But yeah, but for things like yeah, like whatever, like late night, I don't even know what you call those shows. They pretend that they're like talk shows, but they're kind of like political comedy news. Like I don't know, but like yeah, you could get an AI to write that crap for sure, and like I don't feel bad about that because that's what it feels like to me anyway. It's just like robots, like just you hate guys, like aren't they stupid? It's like yeah, okay, this is like anyone can write this.
speaking of that, have you seen the AI political debate stream on Twitch?
No, that's funny
It's
though.
so funny.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Like
funny.
they just come up with these insults that are so random and funny. Like I don't know if you could get that if it wasn't AI writing it. Like it's better than somebody could write for sure.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Like it's the same with the generative art stuff. It's like that it does things that yeah, like you're not going to get it to do with a person, like just the weird random noise of it and kind of like, yeah, it's really interesting for creative stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we're in a simulation?
I do not think we're in a simulation. No,
No. Can you prove it?
no. You asked me what I think, not. I don't,
Let's try to
it's
prove it.
not. I don't know. I think I don't know. Every simulation I've played has some pretty like major glitches in it, and I haven't really come across any. You know.
But you make simulations. So you must think about what it'd be like if we could get it. Okay, how about this? Do you think we can make simulations so immersive that like you forget about your own reality, like what happens in dreams?
Yeah,
And then
yeah. I mean, God, like it doesn't take much to do that for me. Like I basically, yeah, like I fell into Diablo 4 this month and just like lost my life. Like I did, like honestly, like, like I don't, I forget. Like, oh, I gotta like shower, like like or eat. It's yeah. I think we can get there, but like, I think you'd know that you were in a simulation. You know, like if you just thought about it, you'd be like, oh yeah, right, I'm in this thing.
but that's what dream. Okay, do you remember your dreams?
Yeah,
Do you ever have lucid dreams?
yeah,
So, like, for me at least, whenever I've had a lucid dream, I'll just be going about my day in the dream, like, whether it's normal or really wild. And then out of nowhere, I'll just be like, is this a dream? And then as soon as I think about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a dream. And that's when the lucid dream starts.
right.
But, like, I don't think about it most of the time for whatever reason. So, like, what if we can make games that are just so immersive and so, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
like, but you just said that even in dreams, you realize like,
Yeah, but,
oh, this is a dream.
yeah, but like 99% of the time, I don't even have that thought. So, like,
Sure.
I guess if the immersion's good enough, you don't even you're so wrapped up in what's happening that you don't even stop to think about it.
maybe, maybe.
So if that's possible, and if you get that immersed, like you don't think that there's a potential for us to be in a simulation right now?
I mean, there's potential for it. I just don't think that that's what's happening. Because okay, so the in a lucid dream, you can basically take control. Like once
Mhm.
you realize it's a dream, you can mess with it, right?
Yeah.
So if this was a simulation, and like literally nobody has figured it out, and like can mess with it, like, I don't know. I don't know. It seems like
That's a good point. That's a good counter.
is it? I don't know. Just
Unless maybe there's people who have, and they're like, you know what? Let's not mess with it too hard because it will break. Like,
right,
let's just have a really cool life.
right. You don't want to crash the simulation.
Um, would you ever make a non VR game, like a regular
Yeah,
desktop?
lo-fi is also non-VR. It's
Oh, okay. How hard is it to make it for both desktop and?
I mean, you'd have to ask my programmer Noah, who basically did that part. I don't think it's too bad. It's like, or actually, I think Mark Schramm did the camera thing. Oh no, I think it was Noah. Anyway, um, yeah, it's basically you're just taking this complicated VR rig. That's the hard part, and just swapping it out for the regular like Unity player controller, and then you have to change, interaction and stuff. So instead of like reaching down to pick something up, that still has a hitbox with a tag on it, right? Or like whatever, a layer. And so instead of reaching to pick it up, which is the harder thing to do, you just point the cursor at it and hit E or whatever, right? It's like, yeah.
What about like optimization and stuff? Like, aren't there pretty strict limits on what you can do with like lighting and post processing and all that kind of thing?
For mobile VR, yeah.
Not
Uh,
for Vive.
no, I mean, yeah. There's like a. Well, it's just like anything, right? Like if it's too intense, it'll be low frame rate and it'll suck in VR because you'll get sick. But like you can still set like a minimum system requirement and have graphic options and stuff.
Hmm. So you can just like turn down the intense
Turn down the
graphics.
textures, turn
Okay,
down,
that seems
whatever.
easy enough.
Yeah, it's not much different. I mean, it is harder for VR than for non VR, but
Yeah, I don't know how you've made it look so good with the limitations of VR.
because I'm awesome. That's
Well done, well done.
it's, I think it comes down to what I like about the medium in the first place, right? It's like I'm not really like a game like I'm not a game designer. I'm not into like puzzles and stuff. I'm into like other stuff like mood and
Mm.
aesthetics and like stuff like and lighting and stuff like that, right? So it's like, but I'm also like I've been working on games for so long that I used to run the programs that we're running now, like 3D Studio and Photoshop, on like a 486 with 4 megs of RAM, right? So it's like I know how to optimize things. I know how to like, make sure that it runs good. Like I'm doing that as I work the whole time, which I don't think a lot of people do anymore. Like they're not keeping in mind like, oh, this has to run later.
Right.
It's like, but I'm doing that the whole time. Like as I'm working, I'm like I got to make sure that this is not like obscenely, whatever. Like it doesn't need a 8K texture for something that nobody's ever gonna like put their eyeball on,
Right.
kind of thing.
What how did you get into VR in the first place? Is there like any experiences that you've played that were either like got you into it or just stand out as really good?
How I got into it was basically like, well, God, how I got into it was like in the '90s when I went to the CNE. What is it? What's that stand for? Toronto National Exhibition? No, Canadian National Exhibition.
I guess Canadian. I don't
Yeah,
even.
yeah, that would make sense. That would be, otherwise it would be TNE. Uh, so it's like this big expo thing that we have in Toronto every year, right? So in like 90, I would say like 95, 94, maybe even earlier. They had those virtuality machines, like where you stand in the donut and they put the big virtual reality headset on, like the old arcade like VR.
Like the things you can walk, like the treadmills, and you
You
walk
can't
around.
really walk in it. No, you
Why
just
is
you
it a
just
donut?
stood inside of it. And I think it was like a pen to keep you from like running away.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure anyway, because you couldn't walk. Uh, so I played this game. Yeah, I don't know how old I was. I was like 14, maybe 15. Um, so they put this thing on me, and it was like a on rails like shooter. So you had, I think, two guns, maybe just one gun, and it was just like on rails, and there was like guys up on platforms and stuff, and you're just shooting crap. Uh, but I was playing it for like, I don't know, like a while. And then I finally died, and the two guys working the booth like took the headset off of me, and they were just like staring at me in shock. And I was like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "We've never seen anyone get that far before." And I was like, "That's fucking cool, man." It was like, that made me feel like so awesome, right? And like the experience itself was really cool too. By today's standards, it was terrible, but like I was always a nerd growing up. Like I basically lived in arcades and was like obsessed with computers and stuff. So to experience virtual reality for the first time in that way, kind of like it was like a big deal. It made me think of like movies like I don't know, like video game movies, like The Wizard or what's the Last Starfighter, right? Where he's like playing the arcade game and he's so good at it that the intergalactic space federation comes and recruits him. Like that was like the recruiting machine. If you haven't seen that movie, you need to see that movie. It's really good.
Is that what happened to you? Like some like big VR agency was like, "We need you to test our games. You're very good."
No, but that's what I mean. It made me feel like I'm like
Hmm.
this is it, right? Like this is my calling. But I mean, then there was nothing for God, I don't know, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Um, and then the DK1 came out, like the Kickstarter for the Oculus DK1, and I didn't even know about it until after it happened. But as soon as I found out about it, I ordered one, and I didn't know I didn't know that Unity was a thing. I didn't know that there were like game engines. Like to me, like I worked at Rockstar when I was like 17 to like 23, and everyone had to make their own crap, right? Like you could use like a couple of the big companies' engines. Like I think you could license the like Doom engine or something, like
Okay.
Quake or something.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but there was no like out of the box game engine program. So like I found out about Unity when I got my Rift because it was or DK1, sorry, because it came with a free license. And I was like, what the hell is Unity? It came with one for Unreal also. So I tried Unreal first because like I was talking on the forums and everybody was like, oh yeah, Unreal's better, which you still get, right? Like
Yeah.
Unreal, try Unreal. And I tried it and it was like, it was okay, but like I felt like everything I made felt like Unreal Tournament, which was all that really people were making with. It was like, I don't know. I guess it was before even UE4. It was, I think they just called it Unreal Engine.
Hmm.
Um, and then I tried Unity, and it was like a dream come true. Like I could just dump my assets in it, and there it was. Right? It was so easy for me to learn Unity. It just felt like it was like a stage, and I had all the pieces already. I just and it blew my mind. What's this? Was there a question that I'm answering? No.
No, you were explaining how you got into VR.
Right. Okay. So then, so I put on the DK1, and I was like trying the stuff that was available, just like demos and stuff that people had made, and I was like super disappointed And if you go on the Oculus forums, my very first post, like in 2014 or something, was like, "Where's the cyberpunk love? Like, what, like." I expect to put on a VR headset and be, I'm in the future, man. Like, I'm hacking, I'm doing, like, it should be crazy. And it
Yeah.
didn't exist. So I had to make it. So that's basically what happened. So yeah, I ran a Kickstarter, and like, I'm cutting out kind of like the middle section where I actually made the stuff. Like, I was making like demos and uploading them to the Oculus forums, like VR stuff, and people really liked them. Like, I mean, there was like whatever. I don't know how big the community was back then. A couple hundred people probably, maybe a couple thousand. Um, but the feedback was really good, and it like kind of encouraged me to go gung ho.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just thinking about like how funny it is that there wasn't anything cyberpunk like earlier, and there still isn't really much out there.
No,
Even like,
there's nothing. There's nothing in VR right now that I want from VR. Like, even even things like Half Life Alex, which was like a big thing. It's too much of a game. That's not really what I want. I want what I explained. So like, I kind of trailed off with what people did with the holodeck, but Picard would like do his noir detective thing. Riker would hang out in a jazz club and like whatever. What are you crinkling in there? Get out of here! Somebody's crinkling in the kitchen. Um, uh, yeah, but nobody played. Nobody played Beat Saber. They did have like a shooting range thing that they did sometimes, and they had like a squash thing they did sometimes. But if you,
right, right. Oh yeah, I remember that.
but like, if somebody said to you, "Hey, come over to my place. I've got a holodeck," what would you do with it? Right? You're not gonna play squash. You're not gonna play like Shooty Man. You want to like experience something. You want to go to like an alien world, or like do, you know,
I feel exactly the same way. And
yeah,
like I have VR, I've had it for a long time, but I rarely use it. And like some of the best experiences are just environments that are really cool to hang out in. And you can just like look around and be in there and like and maybe interact with things. Like that is better than I don't want to be like you said, I don't want to be stressed out.
yeah,
I don't want to be like running around or like doing too much like activity sometimes. I just want to be chilling and like being in feeling like you're in a totally different space. Like
right,
that and there's so much you can do with that like you said like I love the idea of having different experiences that are easier to have in VR than you would have in real life or maybe you can't have them in real life.
mm-hmm,
I love some of the kind of surreal and artistic things in VR. Those are cool.
mm-hmm.
Even I really liked accounting. I always bring it up but I just thought it was like it was funny. It was still immersive even though it was a cartoon. Like you kind of felt like you're in these different weird places. And it had this sort of fun psychological element to it that
Yeah.
I just afterwards I was like, oh,
It's
that
weird that we've kind of leaned away from that kind of stuff. Like the Oculus Rift came with a bunch of demos. There was this thing called Dream Deck, and it was like just cool environments. Like you're like in the on top of a building in this like steampunk world, and then you were transported to like a museum, and a T Rex comes walking through, or like you're like around a cartoon low poly campfire with some animals, and just like cool experiences like that. And yeah, like job simulator and accounting, like things where you don't die, like you shouldn't die. I shouldn't be stressed out. It shouldn't be like I'm looking for a walkthrough. So like I say that a lot too. Like you never saw like Riker come walking out of the holodeck pissed off and like looking for a walkthrough, or like it shouldn't be a stressful thing. It should be like empowering and like cool.
I agree. Do you think it's because the characters on Star Trek are meant to be like cool people who like those type of things, but in reality Most people just want to like blow shit up or do like stupid things or like do a Beat Saber thing. Like maybe people just aren't as cool as the characters in Star Trek,
Maybe
and there's a demand for it.
it's like an idealized world. Yeah, no, maybe. But then does that mean that we're as cool as the characters on
Yeah,
Star
I
Trek?
mean,
Obviously.
a lot of people would consider Star Trek not cool.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So I guess it's more of our
I was in
own.
a Star Trek fan club when I was a kid. Like I had
You
the
were?
USS Trafalgar. Yeah, I had like I still have somewhere like my little communicator badge and everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty nerdy.
I got into it like later in life. One of my colleagues, an older colleague, he's like, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. He's like, you like this, you like that, and he really encouraged me to watch like TOS. He's like, TOS is the best.
Yeah,
And then so I just sat down and I watched a few episodes. Like this is actually it's really good. Like
yeah,
it has that charming like when was it from? The same thing like Gilligan's
it's like
Island had,
'60s. Yeah, yeah,
where it's kind of like
yeah. It's like '60s.
it almost feels like kind of weird and creepy a little bit the way that
Yeah,
things are, but it's kind of like interesting to watch. It's so
yeah.
different from today. But
Oh,
then I love the TOS is my favorite because it actually has all of the philosophical questions that they bring up are ones that um, are kind of like how do I put it? They they're like or like the first things that you would think of. You're like, what if this happened? Then what would we do? Or like, what's the? And I feel like later on, as things go on, like in sci-fi, we get more granular almost. But like with the TOS, it's like these big concepts they put into the sci-fi, and
right,
they had
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they're just like it's kind of yeah. They're like moral questions every episode, right? And it's yeah, it's interesting because like that's what it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be like humanity's like like exploration of themselves and of the universe, right? And yeah, like with newer stuff, it's kind of it's just drama. It's like or like action drama, and it's not the same thing.
yeah.
I
My
really like
favorite
Next Generation for that because it's kind of like it's very yeah, it's different. It's like talk heavy and not. It's moral problems and kind of. I think maybe Next Generation is a lot more like interpersonal relationship stuff, but the characters are really good. So it's like, yeah,
That's true. My favorite ones in TOS were when the question wasn't obvious right away. So
mm-hmm.
like there'd be a question and then they kind of like debate back and forth and have to think about it. And usually they pick kind of one thing that they think is the morally right thing to do. But I like when you walk away from the episode and you're still thinking about was that the right thing to do?
Right, right, yeah,
That's such a cool way to present philosophy and like in a fun way because it's sci-fi. No one's gonna get like offended because it's present day and you're using like specific things that
right.
might might relate to one thing or another when it wasn't what it was intended. Like you can just go totally out into like fantasy world with sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Present literally just a philosophy. So
Totally.
it's cool. I would like to see more of that. In fact, maybe there should be like VR games that do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. I think we were talking about this last time I saw you about like doing kind of um, like when you first go to the police station in my game, you have to do a psychological evaluation that asks you sort of like trolley problem type questions. And I find it really interesting to like get those answers from people and have the analytics and be able to like use their answers against them. Not really like against them, but like check, like so whatever. This isn't one of the questions, but let's use it as well. Maybe I should use one of the questions. So like one of them is like about no, that wouldn't work. Well, okay, let's just use the trolley problem. So like the thing is like there's a trolley going down the track, and on one side there's one person that's going to get hit by the train, and on the other side there's like five people that are going to get hit by the train, and it's headed towards the five people. Do you pull the lever to make it switch to only hit the one person, right? Um, and the problem there being that like you're inserting yourself into the situation and basically murdering somebody. You don't know that person maybe that person is like the best person. You just murdered like Einstein or something, right?
Hmm.
um, but so like to ask them that question, but then later on present them with that problem once they're invested in it, and to see how they react to it, or just, yeah, I find that stuff really interesting. I wanted to do experiments really early on with kind of just putting people in situations and not telling them anything and just seeing how they react to it, and just like kind of getting the analytics from it.
Yeah,
Like, an
definitely.
example I always have is just put them in a situation with like a smiling person, and they have a gun in their hand. Like, that's it. That's the situation. But like, you can, like, how many people just instantly pull out the gun and shoot the person in front of them, like, because it's a video game or whatever, but like, if you make that person convincing and like kind of, yeah, I find that stuff really interesting. And
Yeah.
I'm sure, I don't know if there's like ethical problems with doing stuff like that, though.
With like messing with people's heads in games
Well, it's not really messing with them. It's like
on them.
just putting them in situations like that. I guess it's yeah, I guess it's fine. Like, we do it with movies and games in general, right? But like,
Yeah.
something weird about doing it in VR for some reason.
It is, and that's why VR is so interesting to me, because you can do these weird scenarios, and it's so much different than just reading a book, because number one, it's interactive.
Hmm.
So right off the bat, pretty much the only medium is a video game. Number two, so like when people, like, you could watch a movie and we can watch like Game of Thrones, and there's two people and they're kind of like both right in their own view, and the two viewers watching it might have a conversation and be like, oh, I think that person's right, oh, I think that person's right. So you kind of have this
Hmm.
idea presented to you and you can discuss it, but you're not interactive with it. That's what makes video games so interesting. You can be in the situation and you decide what you think is right, and then you have to face those consequences of your decision making.
Hmm.
It's even easy, it's more interesting with VR is like you're saying, like it just feels realer. Like it feels like you're actually
Yeah.
having those, it's almost like you can almost, it's maybe this is like a, maybe this is a problem, but you could almost like influence people more, because you can teach them the negative consequences of something
Hmm.
really like close to them, because if they feel like they're living through that, or
Yeah.
positive, like it's kind of influencing in a way. I
Yeah.
think.
And I think it's like you remember it differently, right? You remember it as opposed to like remembering something you've consumed off of a screen. You remember it as if it were something that happened to you, because your senses are fully encompassed, right? It's like,
Mhm.
so it's more kind of rooted into your mind what you did, and like how you remember it. Um, yeah, so I'm also doing stuff with like, I want it all to be really gray morally, like that, like you said, like what what people think of a character could be right or wrong. Something I don't like about TV writing and like film writing is people will be like, well, I wonder what this character really thinks or whatever. And the answer is nothing. Like, they're written by somebody for these scenes, like, there's nothing going on in that character's head outside of what you're watching. But because people talk about stuff like that all the time, right? Like, oh, well, I don't know if this person's like motivations in the show. I'm like, they don't have motivations, man. They're written for a show. Like, they're literally words on a piece of paper. But so that's kind of unrelated to what I was going to say. But like, so in my game, you have a gun and you can kill whoever you want. Like, you're the law. Nobody's going to stop you from doing whatever you want, right? Uh, but I want it to be like, so you might have an inkling that somebody is like doing something bad, and like you might have a reason that you feel okay about shooting them, or like even just to get their stuff or whatever. But like, anyone you kill, basically, it gives you access to their computer and like all of their personal effects. So like, say like whatever, you killed Ugly Bob, the pawn shop guy, because you wanted to rob the pawn shop or whatever. But then you could go and check Ugly Bob's computer because he's dead now, and you have his like computer key or whatever, uh, and you might find out that he's like, trying to like save an orphan or something. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what's going on with people, and I just find that really interesting. Not that I would like purposely try and guilt somebody, but it's like it's interesting to force people to think about that stuff. But at the same time, we're talking about an audience of people that like probably nobody's ever going to read an email off a computer in a game.
Some might, a
Some
lot of
might, but
really,
it's like, yeah, but that's the point. But the point is to make something for everybody. There's a contingency, right? Like the person that just wants to kill him and loot the shop or whatever can do that. It's their power fantasy. They can do whatever they want.
Mhm.
Then there's a person that might feel guilty about it, but then like wants to read the emails to see if there's like more loot somewhere else or whatever, right? Yeah, like a holodeck. Like everything should have a contingency. It shouldn't be like it shouldn't be what I wrote that you're experiencing. It should be what you do. You should feel like you really have agency in
right.
in the world, not just yeah, not just like you're running through content. It's like I want you to feel like you really yeah, you're really there doing things that matter. What not that it matters as in like score or like it's going to come back to you later. It's just more like things matter in the real world. It's like how you feel about them, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's not about, you know, law
Yeah.
most of the time or
So it's interesting. That's something I'm trying to figure out with Strain is, um, and kind of, well, different. Like if you're scavenging for something, you're in a building and you're trying to get like different resources, whatever you might need to stay alive. And there's other people doing the same thing. If there's some kind of confrontation and like you need to incapacitate them to get something from them, that you need to stay alive, let's say. I want to be able to like, you've done it, you got the item, but then you still have the option to kill people. Like, would people do that?
mm,
And would they? And I'm also curious to know if people would, um, if there's no motivation to kill people, like you're not going to get anything out of that. Would they still do it? I don't know. I think that
yeah,
people might. And like what if there are some rewards like some of the NPCs in the game like that you're like that and some dislike like if you decide to be peaceful then some people will like you and some people won't. If you decide to be violent then some people will like you, some people won't. So
yeah,
like what are the factors that go into that? And I also love the idea of how games can play with guilt and and influence people in that way. Like have you ever played the Mass Effect
yeah, yeah,
original?
yeah, yeah. All of them,
Like
yeah, like multiple
there's
times, yeah,
I feel like there's so much in that where they try to use like guilt and there's a lot of games that use guilt, and I
yeah.
think it's so interesting because they're not real
Mass
people.
Effect probably that series did it best. Like that's my favorite game series of all time is the
Really?
original Mass Effect trilogy. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I played it through probably God 5 or 6 times
yeah, me too.
through the entire thing.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's because of that, it's like that game to me, as good as like the shooting stuff is and stuff. It's like it's more about those sort of things. It's more about kind of like morality and kind of and those big questions about humanity and like it's amazing. It's a brilliant piece of like sci-fi and just just art in general. It's so good.
it is, and you're right. It goes back to those Star Trek, the original series
Yeah,
questions of like you might wipe out a whole species if you
yeah, yeah,
save this thing, and if you, it's like very
exactly. Yeah,
very tricky decision making in it, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of makes it interesting.
Yeah, and that's why you play it multiple times too, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm not going to blow up that planet this time and see what happens. And it's like,
Right,
yeah, it's interesting.
it's good. Do you think we're living in sci-fi or cyberpunk world right now?
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're in the future for sure. Like, I mean, we're missing a couple things. We don't have our flying cars and jetpacks, but like, I mean, we kind of do, but like, I mean, you
We
know,
do?
yeah,
That's fun.
there's like quadcopter things that people can fly around in and stuff, and like there's
Okay.
definitely jetpacks and like Iron Man suit things, but like I don't think we thought that through, like how dangerous that is. You know, it's like going to visit the Titanic. You know, it's like yeah, we can do it, but is it safe? No, it's not really safe. It's not, um, yeah, but like yeah, I think that all the time. Like especially with like these AI art tools and like Chat GPT and stuff. Like it's wild, man. It's crazy. It's crazy from like it. If you told me that about Chat GPT 2 years ago, it would be crazy. So it's
Mm.
like, yeah, we're in the future, man. Because it's like, if you told me about that when I was 10, I would have thought you were full of shit. Like, that's not going to happen, Or maybe it would. I don't know. Either way, but like, yeah, we're in the future. Everything's cool. Everything, technology's getting crazy. It's like, yeah, it's wild.
Even I think it's cool to be an adult right now
Yeah.
because if you've been alive long enough, you got to see what it was like when people still use like telephones, or you would just go over to your friend's house and knock on the door and be
Yeah.
like, "Come on
Yeah.
over."
Yeah.
And then and like libraries and books and blockbusters, and I
Yeah.
mean even that was technology really, but like it's so far away from where we are now. And I think like kids who are growing up right now will never fully understand how much change has happened
Yeah.
in
The world,
um
like, yeah, even just like pre YouTube, like, like, yeah, it's wild. Like the number one aspiration for kids now is to be a YouTuber. Like, if you ask people what they want to be when they grow up, it's terrible. That's terrible because for one, they're probably not going to be able to do it. Like, not everyone's charismatic enough. Not everyone's like, and even if you are, like, the chances is like such a terrible aspiration. But yeah, I was thinking my friend Palmer did an interview the other day, and he was talking about that, about like follow your dreams can be a terrible idea sometimes. If your dreams are stupid.
yeah,
It's so
I
funny to
mean
say.
it's okay, that's true, but I also heard something recently that I hadn't really thought about much before, which is how you like when you start off here and you're like, I have this dream to be a game developer or whatever your dream might be.
Mm,
And like this is where you are when you're a game developer, right? So you're far away from it, but as you get to each like step along the way or along the way, you actually become a different person. And so what you want partway through isn't the same thing that as
right,
what you wanted when you originally set off
right,
to do.
and it gets like exponentially easier the closer you get to the goal, right?
Yeah,
Because you're changing and you're getting better at it.
right.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I don't,
So
I don't think it depends on the person, and like you can have an aspiration to be something that's just not a good fit for you, and
yeah,
like, but like, and you also need the motivation, and yeah, you need to be able to actually follow through. Like, there are people that I don't think should get into game development. Like it happened a lot with like VR. People are like, oh well, what should I do if I want to become a indie developer and make VR games? And I'm like, make sure that that's what you want to do. Like, do you actually care, or do you just think that it's like you're going to make money? Because if you
mm,
think that you're just going to make money, you're wrong, and you shouldn't do it. you know. But if you can make dope shit and you want to share it, and like you like that's what needs to come first. It's like you need to have something worth giving or like selling, and then go from there. You can't go like, I just want to make money, and like, I mean, I guess some people do it, but
yeah. I mean, when people come by my stream and they say that, I want to get into game development, where should I start? I'm like, okay, well, why do you want to do it? And like, some people just want to make money. And it's
okay.
like, it's so much work. It's so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
learning,
There's
and
easier
it's so much
ways to make money. Yeah,
hands-on work. Yeah, you can make a lot more money more reliably
yeah.
with a lot less
And
work. Like you better
what the
enjoy it.
problem is like, where is that person starting from? Like they might not even be able to make money because they're going to make garbage in trying to make money. And that's what I'm saying is like you need to like it's like becoming like a painter or something. You don't just become something that for a reason other than you want to do it. You know,
Mhm.
like it doesn't make sense to do it any other way. Like I became a game developer because I'm passionate about doing that. You know, I want to make art that people enjoy and I enjoy making it. Not because
Mhm.
of any other reason. I don't care about like money's great and money will come if you're good at it, right?
Yeah.
But like that should be the only consideration, you know?
Mhm.
It shouldn't be anything else except like this is what I'm meant to do. Um, you know, I guess it's that's hard to say because people, you know, people are like, you know, whatever, work at McDonald's or whatever, and they don't want to do that. And like, what should they do? That's a hard question to answer, right? And it's not, but it might not be a game developer, be an artist and post crap on like Deviant Art or whatever or ArtStation. You know, it's like maybe that's not it. Like you have to like that's the hard part of life is figuring out what you are passionate about that you can do, you know, and have that like for the rest of your life kind of thing. Or
Yeah, no, I think if you're really passionate about something, you will get good at it
yeah,
because you will just be doing it all of the time. And
right.
like it's only a matter of time. Like it might take some people more time, but if they're always doing it, then
Exactly. But the passion needs to be there first. Otherwise it's like, yeah, what are you
you're
doing?
never gonna force yourself to do spend all of your time doing something
Yeah,
you hate. Like
exactly.
just be a shitty life.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. Don't go into game development unless you really want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Thank you
we
for
had this like a conversation similar to this when you were running your Kickstarter. Not that like no, it was more about like monetizing and like yeah, Kickstarter problems, crowdfunding problems.
mm,
But it's kind of a similar vibe, like needing something up front, you know.
hmm.
You ended up making a demo, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were one of a few people who suggested, and I was like, I got 2 months. I think I can do it. And I just
yeah.
like worked really hard
You think it
to.
helped?
What's that?
Do you think it helped?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. That's if I ever have like talk to someone and give tips, I will also say
yeah.
do a demo. Though, so the thing was with the Kickstarter,
Hmm.
I think the big portion of it was my community.
Hmm.
So they had already seen a lot of it. So that's why I was like, I don't know if they need to see a demo.
Hmm.
But there was a surprising number of people who came to the Kickstarter and backed it who had never seen my streams before or anything
Hmm.
like that. So those people probably wouldn't have been convinced without the demo. So I think it's really good to have a
Cool,
demo in
cool.
place.
Yeah, for crowdfunding anyway. Like people try to get me to make a demo now, or like people try to get people to make demos for just games in general, like indie games. And I think that's probably not a great idea if you're trying to like if the game's already available to buy and you're giving people a demo. I think I don't think you should do that. I don't want to get into like we're just ending the stream, but I think like it's probably I don't know. It's like giving away too much, you know?
Yeah.
Depends on the demo. Like I think we talked about this too. It's like you can do kind of like a vibe demo where it's like you just here's what the world is like and here
Hmm.
are the things you'll get to do. Don't
Yeah.
give them like the first chapter of the game or something because people don't finish most games anyway. So
Right.
if they get to play the first chapter of your game, that's good enough for most people, and you're never going to see a cent out of it, right? Yeah. So it's like it's kind of like a jaded like developer thing to say, and like the community will be like, "Well, screw you! I want my free demo, or I'm not buying your game." But it's like I don't think you were going to buy it anyway, dude, or do
Right.
that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason for a demo, and it's not. I think I'm going to take the demo down now
Hmm.
so that it's not there as a distraction when people are looking to buy it even.
Are you doing pre-sales? Like,
No, I'm gonna release like alphas to the backers, bit by bit, and then once it's ready, I'll do early access.
hmm,
Yeah.
you should put it up on like itch, like early access also,
Why?
so that so like people can buy into those alphas, right?
Oh yeah, I might do a Patreon for people who missed the,
Or that, yeah,
and
Patreon
then I'll
works.
just do like every time I do a big update, they can whoever's backing the
Right. But
Patreon can.
Patreon, like you'd have to ask for a lot for the demo updates, right? Like,
Well, $20 a month or $20 per update. That's just more like it'd be
right.
more, but if you're really wanting to
But
get
can
it
you do
early,
it per update or
yeah,
yeah?
you can do it for whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay,
So I
interesting.
mean, yeah, I was thinking about that as well. So I might do that.
Yeah, yeah. Because like with both of my games, I did that. Like Kickstarter ended, and immediately there's a place where you can buy it still.
Hmm.
Like because people come to me all the time, and they're like, "I missed the Kickstarter. I want X, Y, Z." Right? And it's like,
Right.
well, we're like, yeah. But like to just even be able to give them a copy of the alpha version of the game for whatever the price is, $30 or whatever.
Right.
It's like it's worth it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining. It's a pleasure to chat as usual.
Yeah. Good to
Okay.
see
See
you.
you later.